Good afternoon and welcome to Deccan Herald Political Theatre. What a day it has been for Indian politics and Indian democracy. The BJP clearly making a huge comeback to power. We have with us today Professor of Political Science M.J. Vinod from Bangalore University, where he also is the Dean of the Faculty of Arts. Professor Vinod, what do you make of this result today with the BJP exceeding all expectations?
As you rightly said, I personally believe it's a historic verdict for many reasons. Definitely in terms of past precedents, in terms of electoral outcomes. This is the first time probably in recent times that a single party has been able to come back with such a huge majority, in spite of being part of a larger arrangement, right, what we call the NDA.
Right.
Okay, and I think the NDA matters, and yet the NDA is something that is a formation that matters in the larger scheme of things.
Right.
But I think in that sense, when one looks at the electoral verdict, this has ramifications for the larger, the way Indian electoral, dynamics need to be looked at in terms of caste, class dynamics, or the region, or other factors which probably we can also discuss, and also in terms of the longer term, possibilities in terms of how we need to conceptualize Indian democracy.
Right.
And traditional perceptions we have had about electoral politics, I think perhaps needs to be rediscovered. I think that in that sense it is historic.
We'll come to that in a bit, but can you tell our viewers how was 2019 different for the BJP from 2014?
I think 2019 is different in the sense we always had a sense that the NDA would be back, the
right,
BJP would be back. The question is, how do you conceptualize the narratives,
right,
in terms of how it evolved as part of the electoral campaigning process on the NDA side, especially BJP, as well as the others,
right,
including the federal front.
Right.
So there was always this sense that, that I had the sense that the NDA would be back.
Okay.
But I'm definitely taken by surprise in terms of the numbers. I think even the exit polls perhaps did not anticipate this.
Yes.
So that is the surprise element.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's not a surprise.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. There was a comment that I came across, and that refers to what the point that you made earlier, that perhaps this mandate is a reflection that India is transcending beyond caste and focusing on a strong leader that people want to elect. Is that how you look at it?
I think that's a very important observation that you've made, because I think we are seeing the evolution and maturing of Indian democracy. That's one way of looking at it.
Right.
In terms of the overall change that we are seeing in terms of how you conceptualize what Indian democracy is,
right,
in terms of all the changes in India at the political, social, economic, cultural and technological levels, that has a larger bearing in terms of our esteem as a country. But esteem has to be conceptualized also in terms of how one looks at, say, ultra-nationalism,
yes,
or nationalism or patriotism. And these are other debates and other issues that are there, very much there. But definitely, I think these elections have clearly shown that, these traditional, notions that we had about the role of caste in politics,
right,
and the type of perceptions we have about caste politics in terms of the vote banks,
right,
theories that we were familiar with, I think are all going haywire.
Correct.
I mean, perhaps this has to be looked at positively also, because having to necessarily remind all of us about our identities in terms, yes, of caste or religion or race, and our sub-identities particularly, can be sometimes demeaning also. And yes, I don't think it has it is something that I think, what is happening now is the maturation of our democratic credentials also, to the extent that you have seen the type of voting patterns, for example, in the case of Karnataka also.
Correct.
We were so familiar with the Bombay, Karnataka region,
yes, yes,
and Hyderabad, Karnataka region, in terms of their, their larger, vote banks, and for the Congress party, or for the BJP, or of course the old Mysore region for the JDS. Now all that is going haywire.
I will ask you about Karnataka in a bit, but
Yeah.
before that, what does this mean for the Congress and the opposition as an entire unit? Because there was so much of talk of opposition unity in this election.
Yeah.
What happens to that?
Yeah, I think they made their attempt, because that was only a possibility for them to take on Modi. There was no other possibility. So I think all that they did was to see how they could, dent the Modi wave, which we were familiar with in 2014 and what we called it. But nobody used the term Modi wave this time. But as you rightly said in our personal discussion earlier, you spoke about the undercurrents. I mean, these undercurrents. The question is how do you read the undercurrents? And when it's expressed by a political leader or in whatever form, there is something more to it, perhaps, which has now been expressed in the voter turnout as well as in the ballot box. So I think this definitely has larger ramifications, as I see it. Going back to your fundamental question about what larger implication this has for caste politics or how we look at region. I think definitely the major changes are going to have already taken place. And I think the election outcome also is a result of a larger sense of what is required for this country, without necessarily saying that whatever the BJP does is necessarily right in terms of policy choices. I'm not necessarily saying that. I think the priority was much more in terms of stability, and political stability matters. I think there was no sense of who is going to run the government if the opposition comes to power. So that was, I think, to the advantage of Modi, to the advantage of the BJP. Because BJP always knew that it's going to be Modi. So they had that head start, you can say, unlike the opposition.
Are you saying the opposition was ineffective in as far as convincing the electorate in voting for them?
No, I think, convincing again is a matter of on what basis do you try to convince? Are you trying to convince on the basis of stability factor or leadership factor or in terms of policy dynamics? I think that has to be specified as I see it. So, but I think the overall sense is that there was this inability to project somebody as a common, a leader who could probably lead from the front, representing all these disparate parties and groups together. They tried to institutionalize those arrangements in terms of alliance, like the SP and the BSP in Uttar Pradesh. People thought they would do much better. It didn't happen. That's a different scenario. But I think the larger sense is how you conceptualize an alliance at the central level and at a national level, and how do you conceptualize an alliance at the state level. You have to make these distinctions. And you cannot think they're all one and the same. I think we have to probably look at those dynamics also.
But what do you think went wrong for the Congress? Because it was a renewed Congress this time under Rahul Gandhi. But somehow it didn't work.
I think they probably assumed that by winning, the state assembly election, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, they are on a roll. It is not necessarily didn't happen. So I think this is where the discernment of the voter is very important. The voter is he's a discernment voter. He is able to distinguish what are the priorities of the country at a national level and what are the priorities of the state. You have seen this in Orissa now. How Naveen Patnaik is now, back with a bang. You are seeing the case of DMK, back with a bang. So those local, regional, state, issues do matter in national level elections also. But then the voter is able to discern. That you need stability of government probably at a national level. Because perhaps a perception that once the opposition comes to power, it's good to have a strong opposition. There is no doubt about it. That's very, very important in a working democracy. But at the same time, it's not be so disparate to the extent that it becomes too open-ended and loose. To the extent stability becomes basic day-to-day, stability and public order becomes a matter of concern. It should not happen. I'm not necessarily saying there are no other issues of matters. There are also issues of public concern when you have a stable government. It can work both ways. But then the propensity is higher probably to have greater stability, political stability and order when you have a stable government.
You touched upon Karnataka briefly earlier, and we can get into some details now about Karnataka. 24 seats out of 28, the BJP is leading, and I'm sure by now that's pretty much the result. 24, 2 for the Congress, 1 for JDS, and there's one independent in Mandya who has won. How do you see this? This is the best ever performance of the BJP in Karnataka, isn't it?
One way of looking at it is that you can look at it two ways. One is, the JDS Congress alliance, and people thought there would be a consolidation of votes, and probably that would be one way of taking on the BJP in a national level election. Perhaps that was the sense. I mean, perhaps the gut feeling also was that. And perhaps people thought it would work out that way. But I think when you look at it more dispassionately, one has to also look at the earlier elections. I'm not surprised by the performance of the BJP, to be frank with you, because they have been consistently doing well in Karnataka last 4 or 5 elections, right from 2004.
Yes.
You see, they got 15 or 16 or 15 seats. Then 2009 they increased that margin. 14 it came marginally less to 17 seats, and now it has come to 24.
Correct.
So if you look at that curve, if you look at that graph, I mean, it is going like that overall. So to that extent, I'm not surprised. That has been the trend. And but perhaps people thought, in terms of the alliance, JDS and Congress coming together, that this alliance would work. But then this was an alliance that was a non-starter.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
I say it's non-starter because they had a lot of problems. First of all, to satisfy their local cadres.
Right.
How to bring them on board was a major issue,
Right.
and this has always been a problem for them. And this was to the advantage of the BJP also, because there were two things that went in favor of the BJP. I think one is in terms of the internal fissures within the Congress,
right.
and secondly in terms of the grassroots level dissensions, within the Congress as well as within the JDS.
Correct.
Okay, in terms of how candidate selection was made.
Correct.
So this obviously, was not the right framework within which the alliance could really take off. Okay, I think so. To that extent, the alliance probably worked to the advantage of the BJP.
And would you also attribute this to the fact that we have seen some major upsets in Karnataka?
Absolutely.
Former Prime Minister Devegowda,
Absolutely.
Mallikarjun Kharge,
Absolutely.
Veerappa Moily, K.H. Muniappa, all of them losing.
Yeah, you're right. Most of them are long time people who have served for a long tenure in Parliament. You have a former Prime Minister. Okay, but then you have to look at the larger dynamics.
Right.
I think in Kolar also K.H. Muniappa is lost. Okay, but then when you talk to people in Kolar, they'll say, I'm not casting any aspersions on him. I mean, he has done his work, not necessarily, but the overall sense that he could have done a lot more.
Right.
Okay, for Kolar, and that's not necessarily happened. Okay, so there's time for change, and this was an opportunity to change. And the person who has been elected is a 53-year-old person. I think he's rather young, and so people have a lot of expectations from him. Well, he may or may not do the job. That's a different thing. Okay, but this was the This is how people begin to think.
He happens to be a corporator in Bangalore.
In Bangalore, correct. Now, Sumalata's case, I don't have to tell you. It all started on the wrong note.
Yes.
And you do know that many of the opposition party, I mean the alliance partners themselves were responsible for bringing her to power.
Yes.
Okay, BJP didn't have to do much work. Okay, all that they had to do is make sure there was no BJP candidate put up.
Right.
And they did that very tactfully.
Right.
And the rest is done.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is this...
And Devegowda's case, of course, I personally thought he should not have stood for elections. Of course, that is his choice, his decision.
Right.
Okay, he could have been an elderly statesman as former Prime Minister guiding the party.
Correct.
And that's what I think is required. Okay, and this has been a larger part of the political culture, that we have seen across the political landscape of India, where, senior political leaders who probably should be playing the role of a fatherly role and a statesman role and allowing the others to grow. It has not necessarily happened.
Correct.
Not only Devegowda's case,
Correct.
so many other cases. I don't want to mention names in that
Correct.
context. But that probably is his undoing.
Correct.
I mean, to the extent that, you have a grandfather and two grandsons also contesting the same elections when you got only 7 seats out of the alliance.
Yes.
I mean, and that too with a lot of bargaining.
Yes.
You got 7 seats. So you take about 40% of those seats for the family, then it becomes a problem.
Yes. We'll end with 2 questions.
Yeah.
In Karnataka, is this result a vote against the Congress-JDS coalition headed by Chief Minister Kumaraswamy?
See, technically one should make a distinction between national level elections and state level elections. The same question is being raised in the context of Tamil Nadu now.
Right.
I mean, if the DMK is able to get 18 of those seats, perhaps it's going to make a difference for Palaniswamy's government, in the ADI-DMK government. I think we go by technicalities. I mean, national level elections are different, state level elections are different.
Right.
I don't see any reason why the government should fall.
Right.
But then the government can fall for so many other reasons.
That was my last.
Because there is this whole question of there is already a scenario where there is dissension, like Ramesh Jairi Kohli, for example. That dimension is there.
Right.
And there will be more MLAs and more MLAs willing to join his bandwagon now. Okay. So the question is, whether there could be a split within the party. We do not know.
Right.
See, a 1/3 split, and then that could legitimize the type of change that can take place, even as per the Anti-Defection Act of 1985,
Correct.
isn't it? So I think it's full of possibilities. But technically, you have to, these are 2 different elections. We do not see we just had elections last April.
Right.
Okay, and we won't have another round of elections. But the fact is that when a party gets the type of sweep that you have seen that the BJP has made in Karnataka, I will not be surprised if there are so many different options and openings and possibilities, and the rug being pulled from under the feet of Kumaraswamy as the days go by. I will not be surprised.
So a threat does loom.
Definitely,
Right.
a threat does loom. There's no doubt. In fact, Yadurappa, former Chief Minister Yadurappa himself has said
Yes.
that you will see a new Chief Minister in 24 hours.
Yes.
24 hours. He said
Yes.
that yesterday.
Yes.
Isn't it in one of the public meetings? He
Yes.
said that.
Yes.
So which means even if it's not going to happen in 24 hours, it's possible that it could happen in 48 hours or
Right.
maybe beyond that. But
Right.
the fact is there is a lurking
Right.
threat. There
Right.
is no doubt about it.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Professor
so much. I
Vinod.
appreciate it.
That was Professor M.J. Vinod. Thank you for watching, and follow our website for more updates on the Lok Sabha election.